right, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called Silent Night, Bloody Night, 1972. This is going to be another canon flick. Giving it 5 out of 5 stars. Love this flick. It's one of those so bad that it's good type movies, and it's produced by Lloyd Kaufman. The Mansion, The Madness, The Maniac, No Escape, Silent Night, Bloody Night. Good looking black and white poster there. Not to be confused with Silent Night, Deadly Night. I just added the sequels to Silent Night, Deadly Night. I added parts 2 and 3. Part 2 is Eric Freeman, Garbage Day. All right, Silent Night, Bloody Night is a 1972 U.S. slasher film directed by Theodore Gushuni and starring Patrick O'Neill, Mary Woronov, very young-looking Mary Woronov, James Patterson, Astrid, Heeren, and John Carradine. The plot follows a series of murders that occur in a small New England town on Christmas Eve after a man inherits a family estate which was once an insane asylum. Co-written by Jeffrey Convins, Silent Night, Bloody Night was filmed in November and December 1970, which is around my birth date, in Oyster Bay, New York. A number of Warhol superstars appear in the film as extras during the film's flashback sequences, among them Ondine, Candy Darling, and Susan Rothenberg. Okay. Silent Night, Bloody Night was briefly released under the alternative title Night of the Full Dark Moon in November 1972 by Canon Films before receiving subsequent releases as Silent Night, Bloody Night, and later Death House. Though attributed to Zora Investments Associates, the film was never registered with the United States Copyright Office and thus fell into public domain. So it's free on YouTube. I posted links to the free movie and the trailer in the description box. Oh, Adrian has this on DVD. I'm impressed. I love the old man that has a young woman there. Might be hope for us yet. The Oyster Bay house still stands today. Well, Adrian's got some insight into this. He knows about this. Pretty cool. I was looking for the remake and the two sequels. I couldn't find it. Well, I already had the Silent Night, Deadly Night. Silent Night, Bloody Night. Part 2, I already had on my list. Great. It's mostly recycled stuff from the first movie. And it's directed by the great Dustin Ferguson. All right. Production companies: Armor Films, Inc., Canon Productions. This is a Canon flick. Jeffrey Convins Productions, Zora Investments Associates. Distributed by Canon Films. We said this was a Canon flick. You have to remember, Canon produced films from 1967 to 1994, which is quite a long run, actually, when you think about it. Karate Man only cares about the action stuff. He won't watch like uh, any of the hot bubblegum stuff or anything non-action that's canon. He won't touch. Release date November 15, 1972. Running time 83 minutes. Nice 1 hour, 25 minutes, and 17 seconds. According to the full film thumbnail on Wikipedia. So which is it? 85 minutes or 83 minutes? That's questionable. Country, United States. Language, English. Budget, $212,000 to $295,000. And there's no box office information on here. The young woman keeps asking him, "Can I have some?" Feeding out of his hand. They get horribly murdered in the bed. Yeah, all off camera. We don't see the axe actually hitting anything other than the sheets. And then there's blood splattered all over the place. John Carradine is always good. Yeah. He has trouble communicating, so he keeps pounding the bell as if that does something. But he's one of the Looney Tunes from the 1935 insane asylum. we like John Carradine on this channel. We'll watch anything that has John Carradine in it. All right. While it received little critical notice at the time of its release, it was frequently broadcast on television in the late 1970s during the Christmas season, and it has been assessed by modern film critics and writers for its surreal style and atmosphere. Yeah, I like the gothic kind of haunted house that Adrian is talking about. And I like the plot twist, too. In 2015, Boston.com ranked it as one of the scariest films of all time, describing it as a forgotten classic and the movie that birthed the modern slasher flick. I thought Herschel Gordon Lewis birthed the modern slasher flick. On Christmas Eve, 1950, Wilford Butler dies in a burning accident outside his mansion in East Willard, Massachusetts. At least so it seems, according to Mary Woronov, of a very young-looking Mary Woronov. It's confusing because the beginning starts at the end, but Mary Woronov insists that the dude burned in 1970, which contradicts the ending. So it's all very confusing, but worth checking out nonetheless. Highly recommended. The residence is bequeathed to his grandson, Jeffrey, 20 years later in 1970. Lawyer John Carter arrives in East Willard on Christmas Eve with his assistant and young mistress, Ingrid. Having been charged by Jeffrey to sell the house, Carter meets with the town's leading citizens. Mayor Adams, Sheriff Bill Mason, the mute Charlie Toman, played by the great aforementioned John Carradine, who owns the local newspaper, and Tess Howard, who operates the town's television, the town's telephone switchboard. They all agreed to buy the Butler mansion on behalf of the town for the bargain price of $50,000, which isn't much money. But in 1972, that's what you could buy a house for around these parts here in San Francisco Bay Area, which Jeffrey requires to be paid in cash the next day. They say it's worth $250,000, which is hard to believe in 1972 dollars. Carter and Ingrid spend the night at the Butler mansion, but they are brutally murdered in bed with an axe by an unseen assailant. After the murders, the killer places a crucifix in Ingrid's hand, and he proceeds to phone the sheriff, introducing himself as the house's owner and asking him to investigate Carter's disappearance. While talking with Tess, who forwards his call, the killer calls himself Mary Ann. I wonder if this Wilford Butler dude ever raped Mary Ann. And that's the reason why he got a bunch of head shrinkers and witch doctors to move into his house. At nightfall, Jeffrey arrives at the mansion to meet with Carter, but he finds it locked and empty. He drives to the mayor's home where he meets Diane, the mayor's daughter. Excuse me, I gotta put a couple steaks on my cast iron pan. I'll be right back. All right, I got the steaks going. Adrian says, lovely gothic feel. Butler gets set on fire. One take only, allowed for the budget. At nightfall, Jeffrey arrives at the mansion to meet with Carter, but he finds it locked and empty. He drives to the mayor's home where he meets Diane, the mayor's daughter. The mayor has gone to the county's bank to obtain the required cash for payment, so she redirects Jeffrey to the sheriff's office. Simultaneously, the sheriff heads to the mansion, but first, the sheriff stops at Wilford Butler's disturbed gravesite, where he's beaten to death with a shovel. Failing to locate the sheriff, Jeffrey returns to the mayor's home, where Diane tells him she has received phone calls for her father from someone named Marianne, who beckons her to the mansion. So there's something else that confused me about this movie, but it's not coming to me right now. Puzzle. Oh, why did they put the lunatic escaping from the insane asylum at the beginning of this movie? It didn't have anything to do with subsequent events, as far as I could tell. Puzzled. It just made it confusing, and you don't know what direction this movie is going. Kind of takes you off guard. Puzzled by the strange events, Jeffrey and Diane decide to drive to the mansion, but they stop after they find the sheriff's abandoned car. The two stop by the newspaper office where they meet Charlie, who reveals that he cannot speak due to laryngectomy, but manages to explain to them in written notes that Tess has also gone to the mansion. Jeffrey and Charlie go after her while Diane researches the butler's house history in the archives. Diane manages to piece together the butler's story. In 1930, Wilfred's wife died of tuberculosis. In 1933, his 15-year-old daughter, Marianne, was raped and got pregnant. The son she gave birth to is Jeffrey, who was sent away to California. Okay, now I get it. So she was raped at 15, but it wasn't her dad who raped her. It was some other pervert. In 1935, Wilford converted the mansion into a mental hospital, and he had Marianne committed. The rest of the story has apparently been redacted. But we find out at the end because dude's grandson, Wilfred's grandson, shows up. He's able to get in the house through the back door somehow. And he reads the family storybook in the doggone foyer. Why didn't anybody go in the foyer and read the family book? Anyways, Tess arrives at the mansion and she finds the sheriff's car running outside. In the foyer, she's greeted by the unseen killer who bludgeons her to death with a candlestick. Jeffrey, meanwhile, arrives at Tess's house and he finds it empty, after which he returns to Diane at the newspaper office. Diane tells Jeffrey that based on her research, his mother did not die during his birth like he had thought. Jeffrey and Diane depart together to the mansion. En route, they pass Charlie's car, which has been set on fire. Moments later, Charlie throws himself at Jeffrey's car, and Jeffrey runs him over, killing him. Examining the body, Jeffrey realizes someone had cut Charlie's hands off. What is it with cutting people's hands off in this one? All right. At the mansion, Jeffrey finds his grandfather's diary in the foyer. Why is he the first one to discover this again? Which he reveals he was not the one who got Marianne pregnant. The diary recounts how Wilfred grew hostile towards the complainant hospital staff. So during a 1935 Christmas Eve party, he freed the hospital's patients. Great scene there, causing a massacre that resulted in Marianne's death as well. He then ended up faking his death in 1950, and he has been living anonymously in a nearby mental hospital ever since, before escaping earlier that day after reading from a local newspaper about the Butler mansion being put up for sale. Okay, now this makes sense. Once again, Wikipedia put it together for me. The escaped mental patient is actually Wilfred Butler. But what kind of records do they have of this guy at the mental hospital if he's not Wilfred Butler? All right, Jeffrey tells Diane that his father is still alive, and that the sheriff, Tess, Toman, and the mayor were all former inmates Wilfred sought revenge on for the death of Marianne. This is a cool plot twist here. The mayor arrives at the mansion armed with the rifle, and he and Jeffrey open fire, killing each other. The killer, revealed to be the elderly Wilfred Butler, finally appears, and Diane grabs Jeffrey's gun and she shoots him dead, and she cries all day. We said Candy, Darling, Ondine, Tally Brown, Charlotte Fairchild, Louis Love, Harry Cohen, George Tracus, Susan Rothenberg, and Jack Smith appear as various house party guests and psychiatric inmates in the film's flashback sequences. These are all Andy Warhol people. Writer Matthew Dupuy notes that Silent Night, Bloody Night examines themes of abuse, victimization, madness, and perversion of justice. Biographer Tom Weaver notes that the film features commentary on power structures and the polite society of small communities. Film scholar Kim Newman comments on this theme in his book Nightmare Movies, Horror on Screen Since the 1960s. The book is dated 2011. Silent Night, Bloody Night finds that all the pillars of the local community were once inmates of the asylum, and having been run the town since their violent mass breakout. In the canon of modern Gothic themes, the evil asylum occupies roughly the same position held in the 19th century by the unholy convent. All right. Rub some salt, pepper, and olive oil and cook on high and pan. Reduce heat, cover steak. The movie does jump, but love it. Okay. Well, I already rubbed salt and MSG on that thing and I let it sit for an hour. Now it's on high heat. I better flip it over. Sorry, I'll be right back. I got to put butter on it. Okay, I put butter and rosemary. Now I have to put garlic and pepper. Hold on. There we go. All right, sorry about that. I'm waiting for the butter to melt now. Writer Jeffrey Convitz wrote the story for Silent Night, Bloody Night between 1979 and 1969 and 1970 with his friend Ira Teller. After an unsuccessful stint working as a talent agent, he had previously become acquainted with director Theodore Gershony and actress Mary Woronov. Great Andy Warhol. Roger Corman, actress, with whom he had attended Cornell University. The film originally had the working title Zora, which was the title of an unrelated screenplay owned by Canon Films. Konvitz asked, asked Gershny to direct with Woronov, at the time Gershny's soon-to-be wife, starring in the film. Konvitz described Gershny as a peculiar fellow, but that's why I hired him. I knew he was a bit bent. Good hiring decision. Gershny and Woronov, both friends of Andy Warhol and associates of his factory, brought on various Warhol superstars to appear in the film's flashback sequences as inmates and party guests. The film marked the production debut of co-producer Lloyd Kaufman. So this is Lloyd Kaufman's first movie. Principal photography of Silent Night, Bloody Night began on November 30th, 1970 in Oyster Bay, New York, and lasted 18 days. The production budget was between $212,000 and $295,000. The James William Beekman House, also known as the Cliffs Estate in Oyster Bay, served as the butler home in the film. The production was marked by technical issues early on due to inclement weather, resulting in electrical outages and camera operating equipment freezing in the cold temperatures. Actor James Patterson became extremely ill with cancer during the latter part of the production. Mr. Patterson was unable to continue filming, resulting in the editors having to restructure the film's conclusion. Konvitz recalled that it wasn't written or meant to be shot that way. We rushed some scenes and we had to cut some other things in. That's why the end might seem bizarre, disjointed. It wasn't too disjointed. I was kind of surprised when the grandson shot the mayor. And the mayor shot the grandson. What was that all about? All of a sudden, he was in a tuxedo or something. How did he change his clothes so fast? In the retrospective interview, Woronov recalled making the film a terrible experience. We were given a weird script, and Ted Gershny tried to spark it up. He tried to make it an artistic statement, but it didn't work. It didn't even make much sense. Most people couldn't understand what was going on, which is not good, particularly for a horror film. Hey, that's right up our alley. We love this kind of stuff. Woronov did, however, provide favorable recollections of working with John Carradine, commenting, "It was very cold, and we all had to stay in a big old house in which we were shooting, but he never complained. Carradine was a real trooper." Yeah, that's because he had to play in some pretty bad 1940s movies. Post-production took place in the summer of 1972 with director Gershny and editor Tom Kennedy completing dubbing, scoring, and sound effects with re-recording engineer Ron Curves. The film was cut and edited using a Moviola machine. All right, I'm going to talk about the release, but first I'm going to see if the butter is melted on these two steaks here. It is. So we're going to turn that off. All right, we're going to let those medium rare steaks rest. I've got 2 steaks, New York strip steaks waiting for me. I've been fasting all day. No veggies, just all meat. We're going full carnivore tonight after I've been eating nothing but potatoes and noodles all day. The film was given a limited theatrical release in the United States under the title Night of the Full Dark Moon through Canon Films. Beginning November 15, 1972, it was subsequently released as Silent Night, Bloody Night in the spring of 1973, and it continued to screen under this title through December 1973, sometimes paired as a double feature with The Blood on Satan's Claw, which I've got to see. I put it on my list recently. It subsequently screened in Australia in December 1974. The same year, the Sitges Film Festival in Spain screened the film as an official selection. The film was released once again in 1981 by Canon under the title Death House, stylized as Death House in some advertisements and on the film's title card. Although there is a 1972 copyright statement in the opening credits for Zora Investment Associates, the film was not registered for copyright, and since its release, it has fallen into public domain. Regarding the film's copyright and ownership, writer Jeffrey Convins commented in a 2019 interview that Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer held the original film elements. At some point, MGM had no idea who owned what regarding the rights to the film. And they told me, Jeff, you own the film. And they wanted to give me back the film and sign over everything from the lab. And I said, let me tell you something. You're going to sign it back to me. And then you're going to discover that you, MGM, actually still own the film. And then you're going to want to take it all back. So I said to them, no, you keep the film. Then later, about 2 years ago, we went in to try and get the remake rights, and they wouldn't sell it to us. All right. In 1974, television broadcasting rights to the film were sold to CBS for $300,000, who subsequently screened it as a midnight movie. The film was shown on Elvira's movie Macabre, part of WWOR TV's Fright Night, beginning in 1978. And it became a staple of late-night television in the November and December months. Despite the film's dark subject matter and depictions of violence, the network chose to air it at Christmas time each year. Executive Larry Casey commented on it, saying, don't get me wrong, I love White Christmas and traditional holiday movies, but how many times can you watch those things? We always push the envelope on Fright Night, and Silent Night, Bloody Night was a great fit. WROR never got any complaints for showing it that I heard about. The film had its VHS release by Paragon Video in the 1980s. In subsequent years, it has been made available on DVD from various entertainment companies that specialize in public domain films. Though many of the prints on these editions are extremely poor quality, the majority of the prints used on DVDs were sourced from the VHS transferred release by Paragon Video. A high-definition restored print, which is the link for that I posted in the description, which came from Cult Cinema Classics, was sourced from the original master of the Death House print, and it was released on DVD by Film Chest on December 10th, 2013. The same print was also used for a DVD release by boutique company Code Red in 2013 in a limited edition double feature paired with Invasion of the Blood Farmers. Another great flick. In June 2014, Vinegar Syndrome made this 720p HD version available for free digital download on the website. So that's probably the rip that Cult Cinema Class got from Vinegar Syndrome. Though it received little critical notice at the time of its release, the film has received some assessment from various film critics with praise for its atmosphere, experimental, and art house qualities, as well as being noted as a proto-slasher film. In particular, its use of point-of-view shots from the killer's perspective predate those used in other subsequent slasher films, such as Black Christmas and Halloween, 1974 and 1978, respectively. In an article by Boston.com ranking the scariest films of all time, it placed at number 59, and it was heralded as a forgotten classic and the movie that birthed the modern slasher flick. A review published by the magazine Castle of Frankenstein in 1973 was unfavorable, noting that the film appeared to have been re-edited and reworked to such an extent in the intervening period that it makes little sense in its final form, although the plot had some potentially clever angles. Otherwise, it is a hopeless jungle constricted by flashbacks within flashbacks, off-on narration by two different characters, and clumsy direction. My kind of flick. In his book, Slasher Films in International Filmography, 1960 through 2001, Kent Brian Armstrong wrote that the film has a lethargic pace, but it provides enough intrigue and mystery to help a viewer retain interest. Film scholar John Kenneth Muir criticized the film in his book, Horror Films of the 1970s, deeming it technically incompetent and deriding the screenplay and plot for its lack of cohesion. Biographer Tom Weaver disagrees with the sentiment that the film lacks narrative clarity, conceding that though it features some odd plot glitches, it is not nearly as incomprehensible as its detractors, star Mary Woronov included, would have us believe, and he ranked it among star John Carradine's better horror films. I agree with that. Film writer Brian Albright described the film as stylistically moody and surreal, but similarly conceded that its plot is confusing. Writing for Bloody Disgusting, B. Dolores praised the film for its suspense, noting with its brisk runtime clocking in at 83 minutes, including credits, Silent Night, Bloody Night tightens the screws in a way that make you frozen to the core. A review published by TV Guide similarly praised it for its nicely atmospheric moments and some fairly shocking gore, low-budget gore, I might add. In a favorable retrospective review for the film's 50th anniversary in Rue Morgue, Mark Lager wrote that the film is a criminally forgotten hidden gem. Gershon Kingsley's music is cold and haunting, a melancholy mood. Writer Matthew Dupree notes that the film has received substantial criticism for its convoluted plot and gritty cinematography, but he asserts that it is propped up by a fascinating location, strong acting, and a visceral story. The Christmas carol Silent Night, Holy Night plays as a musical motif throughout, adding a layer of acoustic eeriness to an already atmospheric haunted house tale. Dupree later said director Ted Gershony's highly stylistic approach, an amazing location, a competent cast, and a dreary and dark script that was ahead of its time. A remake by UK production company North Bank Entertainment, Silent Night, Bloody Night, The Homecoming, was released on DVD in the US by Elite Entertainment in February 2014. I could not find the remake anywhere on any of the three main streaming services, namely YouTube, Tubi, or Amazon Prime. New Wave Independent Productions produced a sequel to the original film titled Silent Night, Bloody Night 2 Revival. The film was released on March 15, 2015, and I do have the sequel. It's 1,475 on my list. Really enjoying lots of films from the 60s and 70s ATM. Wokeness has killed the industry with very few exceptions now. Well said, Damien H. We've got 4 people in the chat room now. David D says, "Hail Hecklefish." I'm not sure what that refers to, but it sounds cool. It's got a nice alliteration to it. All right. And if you don't want to watch it on Cult Cinema Classics YouTube channel, you can always download it. It's free viewing on Internet Archive, which is another website that I told my son to go through to for Shaw Brothers Hong Kong Kung Fu movies. All right. Silent Night, Bloody Night, 1972, rated R, 1 hour, 25 minutes. It gets a pretty mediocre 5.2 out of 10 on IMDb. Whopping 5,200 ratings. In terms of popularity, it's right up there. 3,852, but it's down 924. A man inherits a mansion which once was a mental home. He visits the place and he begins to investigate some crimes that happened in old times, scaring the people living in the region. All right. More like this, Christmas Evil, Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 2. Which I do have on my Netflix, on my movies list. I've got Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 2 and 3 on there. One is with Eric Friedman, Garbage Day, and the other one is directed by Monty Hellman. Then we've got Silent Night, Bloody Night 2 Revival, which is a sequel to this movie by the great Dustin Ferguson. A lot of Dustin Ferguson stuff is available on Tubi if you're interested. The sequel, which recycles heavily a lot of material from the original, gets a very low 2.4 out of 10 on IMDb. And then we've got Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker, which I've got to add to my list. I know it's Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker. I've got to find that. I don't even know what that is. Oh, that's the TV movie with Andy Rooney. All right. After leaving the drive-in circuit in the 1970s, this movie fell into public domain. It remained obscure until the mid 1980s when it reappeared on Elvira's movie Macabre 1981. Afterward, it began to developing a cult following that grew with its eventual release on home video. Main character Jeffrey Butler is riding with John Carradine, who plays Toman. Butler and Carradine have decided to go out to the Butler house to see what's going on. Instead, Toman pulls into the drive of another house, and Jeffrey Butler says, "Toman, this isn't my house, it's Tess. Tess is another of the townspeople, and it is her house," but Jeffrey would not have known that because he has never been to the town before. Quotes Diane Adams, "How old are you?" Jeffrey Butler, "You mean how many years have I lived?" Crazy credits. The word bloody in the opening title is red, whereas the text of the rest of the credits are white. This was featured in Elvira's movie Macabre, Silent Night, Bloody Night, 1981. Soundtrack, Silent Night, Holy Night, music by Franz Xavier Gruber. All right, here's a flattering review on IMDb. This person gives it a lower 7 out of 10, but still higher than the average rating on IMDb. This person's name is JP91. The IMDb review is dated March 3rd, 2020, and is titled Low Budget Masterpiece, one of the first Christmas horror films ever made, and the first slasher film set in Christmas. Silent Night, Bloody Night is creepy as hell, with a cheap but effective cinematography, amazing film locations, good acting, and a wonderful music score. The script is thrilling and full of mystery, some twists, and great death scenes. A low-budget film that gave me thrills, a great classic. All right. Buy the DVDs like I did yours forever. Flathead is a better fish to eat, David D. The Toy Maker. What is Adrian talking about? The Toy Maker? Is that a Doctor Who episode? Or is that a movie from 2017? Robert and the Toy Maker. I don't know. What are these people talking about? The Toy Maker? I mentioned it? Oh, I'm talking about Silent Night, Deadly Night. Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker from 1991. It's got Mickey Rooney as Santa Claus. I called him Andy Rooney. I was thinking of the television show 60 Minutes. I meant to say Mickey Rooney plays Santa Claus in Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker. So I'm going to add that to my Netflix, to my movie list. Why do I keep saying Netflix? Lloyd just came across this discussion. Oh, okay. Are you guys like talking into the chat room, or are you typing? That's the only question I have. Well, John Doe is late to the game in the discussion. Now let's go down my list of movies upcoming. Next up, I've got Hot Shots Part Deuce, 1993. Madhouse is number 2, 1973. And Fog Island, 1945, is number 3. Oh, Silent Night, Deadly Night. I'll try to find the first one. The second one with Eric Friedman is Garbage Day. Can't wait to see that one. And then the third one is by Monty Hellman. Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, which is Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, Better Watch Out from 1989. Oh, John Doe has Silent Night, Bloody Night in a 50-pack from Mill Creek. That's pretty cool. We like that. I wonder what else is in that 50-pack, John Doe. Anyways, that's the end of my review. Laters.